Welcome back everybody to our TV show EU Deal After Brexit. Let me introduce you Grégoire and my name is Eléna. Today we will focus our debate on European defense and security after Brexit. So first, Grégoire, let me ask you, where are we now in the relations between the EU and NATO?
Well, we can agree that we are quite far away from any European common defense system. Something that has to be understood is that the military defense sector, and more broadly when it comes for a member state to intervene in any external operations, civil or military, in states' minds, the national level of legislation will always prevail for reasons of sovereignty.
Of course.
United Kingdom is a good example, as UK has always been quite reluctant towards such an innovation and always considered NATO as the only legitimate legal framework.
Well, what do you mean? What can you tell us more about NATO and the EU?
Now, on the NATO side, I would say that changes have to be done in the way operations are to be conducted. Otherwise, it will bring its end. The French president, Mr. Macron, said it, NATO is brain dead. So nowadays, if we look at how it works, NATO is showing its own limits, with Turkey buying weapons to Russia, and EU starts raising objections on how missions and operations are conducted by the United States of America. So I would not consider the EU-NATO relationship as being the worst ever, yet EU starts raising new issues and NATO has to be modified. Now on the UK's perspective over new agreements, I would say that things have to be changed and done, right?
Yes, you're perfectly right. The UK will have to negotiate new agreements with the EU. After Brexit, the UK will no longer have access to information and resources it had as part of a member of the European Union. So the first step for the UK will have to be to negotiate with the EU, and for that every member state will have to agree on such agreements, and that will prove hard for Britain as a member state of the EU are wary of the UK's cherry picking. But also there are frictions on certain matters between member states, of course. They cannot all agree on everything, such as France and the UK regarding joint controls on travellers and migrants.
Then let me ask you a question. What would happen in the case of a no-deal Brexit?
Well, in such a case, if there is no deal, the UK will have to negotiate previous agreements with the EU, and without a separate deal, it would take up to 3 years for the UK to have access to information and to get the EU approval for data to be freely exchanged. And such an exchange is crucial today to fight terrorist attacks in Europe. But there has been insufficient preparation for a security deal, and some hope that future UK-EU data relationship will mirror the agreements between the EU and Norway and the EU and Switzerland, as they are both countries that are not part of the EU but have access freely to such data. But of course, with these new agreements, what can you tell us about the legal and political situation between the EU and the UK?
Well, on the political side of the European Union, that may result in a repositioning toward Russia and NATO. UK has always been the bridgehead in terms of alliances and military cooperation between the European Union and the US. Now things will be working differently on different and new paradigms. Maybe it will leave new opportunities for EU to reconsider a new relationship with Russia. Yet we are not sure about that.
Well, what can you tell us more about the legal aspects?
Now, regarding the legal aspect of Brexit over military issues, it seems like the departure of the United Kingdom from the European Union does not leave behind a tremendous amount of legal work to be rebuilt.
I agree.
Firstly, because the European Common Defence and Security Policy falls under the scope of the intergovernmental area of EU's policies. So member states have always been and always had a predominant role in such a policy. Then, specifically about United Kingdom, it has always been conspicuously cautious about a high commitment within any PESCO initiatives. Indeed, about civil operations or military interventions on behalf of the permanent structured cooperation system, United Kingdom has always been aside and never took part of any of it, and never concretely intended on implementing it. So in terms of legal consequences, Brexit does not really impact over the European Common Defence and Security Policy. However, on the UK side, I guess that new situations have to be handled, right?
Right. Those new situations will be for the UK to negotiate with other countries than the countries of the European Union in order to solidify its international position. And well, we can first think of Russia, as you mentioned, because the UK leaving the EU only weakens the position of the EU and is in Russia's interests. Of course, the UK is the country most in favor of the sanction regime against Russia.
With the proximity to the US. So let me ask you a question. What about the specific relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States?
Well, the United States and the UK always had a special relationship, and those bonds that they share within NATO, they share human rights values and cooperation on mutual security. But of course, since the 2016 election, this relationship has been quite disturbed, and that will be the chance for the UK to strengthen its position and relation with the US. But of course, the UK and the US do not share. They do not share. Their position regarding situation on international conflicts are not the same, such as with Iran and North Korea.
So, is there any other countries that have to be mentioned?
Well, we can look in the east with China that wish to have a strong relationship with the UK, and of course Japan that feels that the EU will cease its arms embargo on China. But we will see how the situation evolves, of course.
Right. So as you were talking and speaking for the side of UK, yes. I would say that if we have to make an assessment of all what has been discussed about, in the side of Europe, even in Europhile member states' minds, it seems quite difficult and challenge towards an ever closer integration within the European Common Defence and Security Policy. So for now, a European common defence system working as a European army as one seems to be more likely to be subject to political debates than any urgent matter to the EU. However, if EU keeps on evolving, and again based on facts, if it keeps on evolving towards such an ever closer union, this project of European army will have to be seriously reconsidered.
Of course. Well, thank you, Grégoire, for your intervention.
Thank you, Eléna.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Hope you enjoy. Goodbye.